Governor Newsom, you were described to me just a moment ago by an analyst as the rowdy opposition in the United States. You are by far the most vocal opponent of Donald Trump. You've just come from a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, which of course you can't tell us about, but tell us about it.
No, well, I appreciated his graciousness for sitting down, and we talked about subnational cooperation. We talked about existing partnerships we already have in Germany, and we talked about the importance and the imperative of strengthening those, particularly at the subnational level. With the prevailing winds, with politics, and not only Washington, D.C., for that matter, globally, the one thing that we maintain is a willingness and desire to have stability at the local level, at the state level. And so I share that, and the Chancellor was gracious enough to share that as well.
For him, that is a bit of a political risk as well, to meet with you, because it is a clear symbol also towards the Trump administration. How do you read it?
Well, I God bless. I mean, the idea that it's a risk, and I appreciate you framing it like that, which says everything you need to know about Donald Trump. The petulance that marks so much of American politics today. That petulance is well understood now. I wasn't as convinced in Davos a few weeks ago. I came across perhaps a little strident, maybe a little critical, not of any individual leaders, but broadly of the sentiment, the lack of what I thought was understanding the depth of what Europe is up against, what we're up against within the United States of America with Donald Trump. He exploits weakness. He exploits weakness. No one is more skilled at exploiting weakness. What he respects is strength, unity, conviction. And I think that's on display here in Munich. It was on display in the last few days of Davos. I mean, Prime Minister Carney's speech. But I also applaud the Chancellor yesterday. We talked briefly about his speech. Every one of my colleagues, regardless of their political stripes that I spoke to that are here from the U.S., all were very favorable about that speech. So I thought I thought he met the moment in a very important way, and I think we need more of that, not only domestically in my country, but I think globally.
At Davos, you brought knee patches for Europeans kneeling to Donald Trump, symbolically, but
symbolically and substantively. And look, I brought knee pads because I wanted to express something. Stop bending the knee. Don't sell your soul. You can lose one of the most important allies you have in the world, the United States of America. U.S. can lose its republic. We're celebrating the historic project of our founding fathers' 250th anniversary this year. And we've got President of the United States who's trying to wreck our country, tried to steal the last election on January 6th in the open. He's trying to do it again today. And so what I'm trying to express, it's not just foreign leaders, it's universities, it's law firms, it's corporate leaders that are selling out. And they're not speaking out. And my frustration is this: the reason I came with those knee pads, symbolically and substantively, is I hear too many people say one thing privately, but they're not expressing that conviction publicly. And this is it. We can lose this whole thing. We can lose the transatlantic relationships and the alliance, which is not dead from my humble perspective. We also can lose the United States if we don't stand up and meet this moment.
So now looking back at the conversations you've had here, including the German Chancellor, the speech you heard, but also Marco Rubio's speech, when you go home to California and someone asks you, so what did the Europeans do? Are they standing up to Trump? What's the answer you're going to give?
I think they are. Look, I think the tone that Rubio came in with, certainly very different than Vance last year. You can read between the line a little bit. I mean, what Rubio was saying, what he wasn't said. But that is a very different speech. It was certainly different than the tone and tenor in Davos just a few weeks ago from the President of the United States. I think that's in response to this new reality. So I think, yes, Europe is expressing itself in a more unified manner. The one thing that Donald Trump has done that I deeply appreciate, and he's done it almost single-handedly, he's unified Europe in a profound and consequential way. I think it's stronger than it's been in years, and I applaud Donald Trump for making that happen.
Now, while we're standing here at the Munich Security Conference, everybody's debating the speech that we heard from Marco Rubio here in Munich, which essentially was a bit of a love letter, recalling the joint history, we belong together, the concept of the West, while at the same time maintaining the same issues that divide Europe and the United States. So is there progress on the U.S. side? Should the Europeans take this as kind of an offering from the U.S. side?
Well, Donald Trump's in retreat. And I think it's important people understand and shape the consciousness in this way. He's in retreat on Greenland. Tonally, you saw the retreat. in terms of the tone and tenor that was expressed by the Secretary of State. He's in retreat in the United States of America. He's pulling the secret police, his masked men, ICE agents, 3,000 of them. He's taking them out of Minnesota. He is historically unpopular in the U.S. They're in a reset because economic conditions. He's underwater in every key category, including his number one issue, which was immigration. And now he's underwater in terms of public opinion polls on that. So he's increasingly weak, and he's shown to be weak. When people stand up to Trump, when you fight back, fight fire with fire, he backs down. And I think he's been testing boundaries. It's what he does, throws things out. And if people are too complicit, you sit back, say, we don't take him seriously. He'll take whatever he wants. If he sees something he wants, he'll take it, unless people push back with clarity and conviction. This is happening within the United States, and it's obviously happening in real time around the globe. And I think people are figuring that out, and it couldn't come too soon.
So are you hopeful when you look at the withdrawal from Minnesota of ICE, but also how are things going in California? Do you feel safe from any kind of further interference by ICE agents?
Well, I want to remind everybody that happened in my state first. In June of last year, he federalized 4,000 National Guard and sent 700 active duty Marines, not overseas, but to the second largest city in the United States of America, in Los Angeles. Now he has a private police force that appears to have taken the oath of office to Trump, not the Constitution of the United States, in ICE, that has billions and billions of dollars of new appropriated money. And he's currently recruiting to build the ranks of that. So I'm not naive to your question that we could see these kinds of efforts revisited. But the difference is the American people are starting to stand up. Real citizens standing up, weren't asked to do it, self-organizing, organic, bottom-up movement. No King's rallies. People saying, hold on, this is not what we voted for, it's not what we believe, you're going too far, Mr. President. And he is now forced to react. He's going to get crushed in the midterm elections. He's going to be neutered. That's happening just in a matter of months. It's going to be a new Speaker of the House, more oversight, more accountability. He will lose, mark my words, he will lose in the United States Supreme Court on his tariff authority, the unilateral authority that he's asserting under the IEEPA, this International Emergency Economic Powers Act. He doesn't have that authority. I say that biasly because California was the first to sue on that basis, but that will change the dynamic in terms of how he uses tariffs for personal dealings, not just policy making as it relates to trade.
Now, you're the governor of the second largest state, but also one of the world's largest economies in its own right. Yeah. Now, you can't have a trade agreement with Europe separately from the US, but where do you see the dynamic changing? Because we also heard from the Chinese foreign minister here in terms of supply chains. That's an issue that also came up in the bilateral between Rubio and the German chancellor, of course, on the European level. So how do you see the dynamics shifting there? And how can you, as a state governor, because German politicians always stress that they're seeking those close relationships now, enforce closer ties and keep closer ties with Europe?
Well, we're blessed. California is the only state in America with rare earth minerals. MP Materials is in my state. And so this is supply chain issues are near and dear to the work we're doing in California. And I received very positively, and I imagine most Americans did, Rubio's comments about the opportunities around supply chains for Western democracies to engage, to address those constraints, current constraints vis-a-vis China. And I think that's an imperative and self-evident coming from the invasion in Ukraine, coming from all the supply chain disruption that we've experienced in the last number of years. So there's opportunities, and that was encouraging. Those are pathways that can happen at the subnational level as well as nation to nation. So we'll continue to try to build those partnerships, build those paths. You're right. I represent a state larger than 21 state populations combined in the U.S., the fourth largest economy in the world, but also that dominates in AI and fusion and robotics and quantum, in all of the technologies of tomorrow, with an entrepreneurial mindset, with more venture capital, more research and development than any other state in the nation. And that entrepreneurial energy needs to be unleashed for good in the spirit, I think, of what Rubio tried to bring to this conference, in the spirit of openness, in the spirit of liberal democracies and freedom, and in the spirit that defines the best of the Roman Republic and Greek democracy, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty, the rule of law, not the rule of Donald Trump, not the law of the jungle, but the rule of law that defines the last 70 years.
I just had two more brief questions. First of all, what advice did you give Europeans you had bilaterals with, not just German chancellors, but you had many European meetings?
Well, I'm old enough to know I need advice, not dispense it. So I'm here with humility and grace, seeking to understand, not just to be understood. But look, I think the biggest problem with my party domestically in the United States of America is this perception of weakness. And I think weakness defines the larger conversations we've been having. He'll exploit weakness. Given the choice, we say this in America, given the choice, the American people will always support strong and wrong versus weak and right. And I think this notion of strength, conviction, clarity, and in the spirits of an old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Alliances. The European Union, I feel, is more centered than it's been in some time because they recognize what's at stake. The success of Europe is the success of the United States. There's an interdependence here. It was implied, expressed by Rubio today, and that's important. Western civilization, these values, and they need to be enduring, and they need to be embraced, they need to be celebrated, not tolerated. And so that's my approach. Strength, conviction, courage, standing on values, and not trying to be complicit at this moment. That's all.
And then to your own role, because I've spoken to many analysts who told me, look, a Californian is never going to get elected US president if you have any further ambitions. Also in rallying the Democratic Party together, which is really struggling to come up with a concept to counter Donald Trump. So you're putting yourself out there pretty hard. What are you hoping to achieve in terms of reinvigorating the Democrat Party?
Well, I don't want to be in peril of being judged not to have lived. I'm saying what a lot of people are thinking, and I'm willing to put myself out there and demonstrate not just rhetorically, but substantively. We just had a big ballot initiative in California to push back against the election rigging by Donald Trump in another state, Texas. It was our Election Rigging Response Act, Proposition 50. We fought fire with fire. Ronald Reagan would disagree with this idea that Democratic, in a now currently Democratic state of California, that a Californian can't become president. Richard Nixon would beg to disagree with that analysis of some of those pundits as well. But that's not what this is about. It's not about presidential politics. It's about being accountable to the world I'm living in. No state is more impacted by what's happening globally than my state. Number one in direct foreign investment, number one in two-way trade. We talk about a $4.3 trillion a year economy. 27% of my state is foreign born. We're a universal state. So this is part of my day job. And a lot of that day job is marked by the success and failure of others around the globe. And so, again, when I talk about interdependence, I mean that literally, not just figuratively, the importance and imperative that we all thrive together.
Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, thank you so much for talking to us today.